World Development System. Chapter 71. Joseph thought about his quarrel with his grandfather, who was against him permanently taking a position, as he thought this would be suicidal if John didn't succeed at North Frontier City, and he was putting all the eggs in one basket. However, Joseph felt he would be too late if he took a late decision. He was still glad that his father supported his decision, however he too was against making such an early decision. Joseph and Frank's discussion a few days ago. Frank seriously said, "You do realize that if you move there so early you will be taking an early stand and all your interests would be aligned with John permanently. Even though he is your friend, you should take rational decisions when it comes to your future. If he falls, then you would fall as well. At least wait till the passing of this winter disaster and then make a decision. You should already know that this year's winter is totally an eye of the storm at North Frontier Town, where a lot of people from the north will be involved, and he would most probably be isolated by lords over there, as most of them are aligned with Prince Hector. Even I, as your father, wouldn't advise you to take such a big risk in an early position. Though you may think that Vlad will help him, you don't know what he is thinking all the time. At one moment he may smile at you while he is stabbing you from the back. He has always been an odd character. We only have business interests with him right now and not a tight-knit relationship. It would be better to wait and understand them a bit and make your bets." Joseph said to Frank, "I think I need to take an early position, or we will always remain business partners and not someone who can trust each other when it comes to sensitive matters, whether it is John or Vlad. After thinking a lot, I have made my decision, as this would show my sincerity to them. This country would be at war in no less than 15 years, when all the princes compete for the throne with each other, and nobody knows what that madman Lukov might do if he chooses to participate in this spat between dukes and princes. We don't have any connections to Prince Felix. Our only backers are Marquis Ray and Duke of Southern Forest. I would rather trust on John, who can become big, and if he succeeds then I too will succeed." Frank sighed and said to him, "Since you have made a decision, I hope you don't regret it in the future." Frank smiled and continued, "Anyway, I will be fair to all of you brothers, however your grandfather would be quite mad." "Well, don't worry about him, he has always been like that. This can be best as well as the worst decision for you." Joseph smiled and said to Frank, "Haven't you taught me already that risks and gains are always linked to each other, whether you are conducting business or other ventures? And I truly feel that my close friendship with John will be helpful in the future, unlike the fake ones. And this decision of mine will further solidify our trust and express sincerity from my side." Frank nodded as he thought and said, "Since you have made your decision, I will accept it. The same was for your father when we brothers took our own decisions. However, you have to be prepared for conspiracies from your brothers and cousins. This happens to even today. Anyway, I will give the same advice to your brothers as well." Frank felt nostalgic and sad when he remembered how one of his brothers died to his blade in the past because of competition and power grab. It was either his death or his brother's death, and in the end, he chose the latter. "I hoped that this didn't end in a bloody massacre, however, I can't control everything. Maybe father thought the same when I made my decision years back." Frank thought irritatingly as he saw that Joseph had already made his decision. Joseph too understood the meaning behind Frank's last words and said to him as he left, "Yes father, farewell, take care." Back at John's mansion, John said to people present at the meeting, "Okay, since the police force and militia have already been formed, we will immediately announce the formation of the police force with our new laws and the creation of courts to settle civilian disputes as soon as we are ready." John continued as he said to everyone seriously, "This information is only for people present in this room. I intend to create another force who would help us gather information on foreign spies and take missions outside to help us keep updated on the current events. We can't always hope to get help from Vlad every time, we need to be self-sustainable. Jake will head this department. Currently, he is out on a mission and doesn't know about this information and developments. In the future, he and his men will help us keep updated, and they would only be directly answerable to me. The name of this organization will be Ghosts, the Keepers in Dark, and it will be headed by Jake, and it would be under my direct control. If there are any conflicts of interests and disputes with them, then bring those issues directly to Taylor, who will later inform about them to me, and I will try to resolve those problems. We will also be setting up a military court with military laws for both the army and ghosts. Many people thought that Jake was too young to keep such a post, but then they thought about his master, Vlad, and immediately kept their opinions to themselves. It was because they remembered about him and his men, who would always be able to control the miscreants who roamed around the various factories which generated income for the city. While Tornwall thought on the contrary to what people were thinking, and said, quite a good choice to make his first night to serve this position. Experience can be gained, but people who you can trust are hard to get. I guess it will be better for future, considering Jake is still too young. Many thought and understood why John chose Jake for this position. Jake already made an oath to John while both are disciples of Vlad, which made sense why he would make this decision. Jake was in the east of the Imperial City right now, where he was doing a mission handed over to him by Vlad. Originally Vlad was given this mission by one of his clients, which he thought Jake could handle. This was also one of the tests which Vlad gave him so he could evaluate his performance. Jake was in a bar in the Redwood City, which was east to the Imperial City. This city was a transit hub for people and traders from southeast heading towards the center of the kingdom for trade and migration. This city was also a haven for slave trade, as the royal family usually conducted their business from nearby cities or via their henchmen when it came to the slave trade. Here Jake's mission was to kill a mercenary who went by the name of Black Tiger. Jake was careful when he asked questions to people. He already had most of the information regarding Black Tiger from Vlad, but what he didn't know was that he had a bit of wrong information which was purposely given by Vlad. Vlad wanted to teach him this lesson of never to blindly trust anyone, whether it was a friend or a foe, when it came to important missions, and do your own research as well. He was already here at Redwood City for a few days already. This was a town which was always full of people. Jake had made quite an acquaintance with the bar owner in these days he was here. Like usual, Jake was drinking at the bar again today and looking for Black Tiger, which was mentioned in the information given by Vlad. The bar owner today decided to ask Jake, as he saw him for quite a few days already looking for someone. I have seen that you have been looking for somebody at this bar for quite a few days already. Whenever you here, come for a drink. I don't know if I can help. You can ask me if you want any type of information. Jake understood and removed some gold coins and put it in front of the table. He finally felt that the wait was worth it. Meanwhile, he smiled a bit and asked him, I am looking for a man with Black Tiger's tattoo on his face, and he goes by the name Black Tiger. It seemed that the bar owner knew him and asked about Jake's purpose over here. What kind of business do you have with him? Jake smiled as he laid out his guesses. I am only paying for information over here, not the other way around, and from your expression, it looks like you know a lot about him. As soon as he heard Jake, he could feel a dangerous vibe coming from Jake if he lied to him. He understood that this was a dangerous man if he wished to play around and con him. The bar owner hesitated a bit, but then saw Jake's cold glint and decided to say the truth. We can't talk about him here. We need a quiet place because he has a lot of eyes and ears around this town. Jake signaled him and both of them went to a room in the back. Jake cautiously checked the surroundings and room before entering it. The bar owner said after he saw him entering, well, that guy Black Tiger usually comes to our bar, and a lot of his men are mostly present over here as they treat it as their base of operations. You were quite lucky that you waited patiently for a few days before curiosity got the better of me and you met me. You don't look like a local. I assume you are here for the same thing as all the previous people who came here. I can tell you that all of the people who came before ended up dead. Do you still want more information? Chapter 72. Jake, as practiced, said in a cold tone, I only want Black Tiger's information on where he stays usually and where he frequents usually. If this information is correct, I will double your reward. And you don't have to worry about my life or yours. I am only here because I was hired to do my job. The bar owner thought, so an assassin, I guess it's better than all those amateurs who come here to die every time they come here. I wonder which organization he belongs to that he is confident enough to slay that guy. I guess it's better if I don't ask him more questions regarding his identity or his work. The bar owner nervously said, if you want to find Black Tiger then you have to come at weekdays in the evening where he gathers with his teammates every time at least recently. And if you want to find him somewhere else then in 5 days he will gather at the Grand Canyon near the town with his teammates. That's the only information I have regarding his movements." Jake didn't feel any lies through his speech. He nodded, gave a few gold coins and left. Good, no lies. However, Jake didn't feel good as he knew that his man would most probably snitch him out from how that man was acting a bit too cunning and how that person acted based on that person's power. Jake thought as he left. "Damn it, fuck that old man for giving me wrong information regarding that bar. Anyway, I still got some information out of him. Most probably I will get snitched and they will try to set up a trap for me." After Jake left, the bar owner looked around if someone was tailing him or not, after carefully checking out for a few more minutes. The bar owner then left for another place in the town. He knocked on the door 3 times and spoke a password. After some time there was a voice from inside the building. A short man could be seen opening the door as he said to the bar owner, "Come in." The bar owner's name was Damien. "What is it this time, Damien, that you had to personally come over here?" The bar owner hesitated but spoke out, "There is a situation this time around. Someone hired an assassin to hit Black Tiger this time around. It's good that the guy didn't have any accurate information about the bar he was visiting. However, that guy gave me a dangerous feeling, unlike the other amateurs who usually came in the past, so I didn't make a move on him." The short man looked at the man in the back for an answer when that man said, "It seems that businessman still hasn't given up on my assassination from all those years ago. It's quite hard to target him after I got to know about him from previous assassination attempts." That man was Black Tiger, who Jake was targeting this time around. He looked like a big man. The bar owner hesitatingly asked him, "I have always seen you changing the subject when it comes to the topic of this assassination, but what sort of grudge does that guy have with you that he spends ludicrous amounts of money just to assassinate you all over the years? Plus this time the guy that he hired seems a lot more dangerous than other ones." Black Tiger spoke with a sigh as remembered the incident. "Well, as you know, I am a mercenary and we have our own dirty secrets, and since you asked me about this I might as well tell you today. 9 years ago, like all the previous wars, we were in the borders and were returning after a long march. Since we didn't make a lot of gains during that war, we decided to ransack a border village as we were anyways going to lose that place, so we decided to slave the people and took anything that we could so that we could recover the losses. So a lot of things happened during that ransacking. People who resisted were killed, some were raped and another half of the lot slaved. Unfortunately, after a year someone from our team bragged about the incident and some people got to know about it, and from that moment that businessmen have been trying to assassinate me and my team. After further investigation, we got more information on him and it was revealed that a certain lover of his was residing in that village during that time and just happened to get raped and died later on. Well, a big mercenary unit is hard to control at times, so it's part and parcel of this sort of job. To save my life even I have been trying to assassinate that guy, but till now there has been no result. That guy is loaded with money and bodyguards." The bar owner asked a question. "Master, from your tone it can be seen that you regret that incident. Why did you order the ransacking of the village if you know something like this would mostly happen after that incident if it got leaked?" Meanwhile, the short man was listening from the sidelines. Black Tiger frowned and said, "Well, that's none of your business on why I did it. Anyway, enough of chit-chat, tell me more of your conversation and how that guy looks like." From this Damien understood that Black Tiger didn't want to reveal the person who was behind the works and who gave the order that time to ransack the village. Damien then answered him right away. From his voice, he looks like a young man around 15 to 18 years old, but I can't see his features as he always covered his face like the vagabonds with a black scarf. However, there was one thing peculiar about him, and that is, he gave a dangerous vibe just like those men we observed in the past. "Do you think he is related to them?" Hearing this he was shocked, but then he immediately recovered, thinking that young man's age as that boy wouldn't be able to join them this early. "It's okay, I don't think that guy would have any contacts with those men, as just contacting them requires a lot of money and resources or incredible or horrible luck. Additionally, a guy that young wouldn't be here doing field work. It would at least take him a few years to carry out those work. Did he have small horns on his head? Damien immediately replied, "No, I don't think so. He looked like a human, nothing special or different. The only information I gave him was about your schedule, where you usually visited, and the next plans of our visit to the Grand Canyon." Black Tiger was skeptical a bit, but he still asked, "Since you felt that he was stronger than you, then he still didn't try to kill you immediately?" Black Tiger then looked at the short man, who understood that Black wanted him to check the surroundings first. Meanwhile, after Jake left the building, he was observing Damien from a distant place. He also didn't try to kill him, as he confirmed that he was most probably one of the Black Tiger's henchmen. Jake tailed him cautiously using the stealthy steps of hell and reached the place where Damien knocked on the door and said something before entering it. He could see a small fat man before the door closed immediately. Jake thought, "I guess he is going to inform about today's event to his masters. I better be cautious and not enter the building without confirming anything." Jake then tailed him to the building. It was only a 2-story building. He climbed to the roof and started to carefully hear their conversation. He heard about the conversation on why that certain guy wanted to kill him, and he also understood that there was more to the previous incident than what was known to others. Most probably a noble or someone in the court controlled this Black Tiger mercenary group and ordered them to ransack the village. Maybe I should extract some information before I kill him. Jake very well remembered about his training on extracting information when he trained with Vlad, and hence his thoughts on getting more information from the Black Tiger. As soon as Black Tiger ordered for a check of the surroundings, Jake immediately threw a poison needle on the body of Damien from behind after he entered through the window. Damien was numbed as the needle struck him. He turned around to see what happened and was shocked to see the guy who met him earlier tailed him all the way without getting noticed. He was sure that he checked multiple times before heading here, but he still got tailed by him. He then fell unconscious as remembered how this guy seemed different and gave a dangerous vibe compared to others. Damien immediately fell on the ground after watching him blend in with the dark. Watching the commotion, the fat guy came inside the room. Jake then threw a knife at the gate from where he heard the footsteps. As soon as the guy came in the room, he was struck with a knife on his throat, which penetrated deep inside his throat. The fat guy caught his own neck as he squirmed like a dying fish on the chopping board. He squealed, raising one of his hands in the direction of Black Tiger before he lost consciousness as he saw both Jake and Black Tiger taking a defensive posture. He was very surprised to see such a young man with such frightening skills to kill 2 veterans in a matter of seconds. Black Tiger was watching this from the sidelines. Black Tiger thought, "This guy was able to enter undetected even when I actively searched for anyone tailing Damien. From his movements, it looks like he has mostly been trained by a professional expert in assassinations. The most fearsome aspect of this guy is how fast and aggressively he attacks his enemies." Chapter 72. Jake, as practiced, said in a cold tone, "I only want Black Tiger's information on where he stays usually and where he frequents usually. If this information is correct, I will double your reward. And you don't have to worry about my life or yours. I am only here because I was hired to do my job." The bar owner thought, so an assassin, I guess it's better than all those amateurs who come here to die every time they come here. I wonder which organization he belongs to that he is confident enough to slay that guy. I guess it's better if I don't ask him more questions regarding his identity or his work." The bar owner nervously said, "If you want to find Black Tiger, then you have to come at weekdays in the evening where he gathers with his teammates every time, at least recently. And if you want to find him somewhere else, then in 5 days he will gather at the Grand Canyon near the town with his teammates. That's the only information I have regarding his movements." Jake didn't feel any lies through his speech. He nodded, gave a few gold coins and left. Good, no lies. However, Jake didn't feel good as he knew that his man would most probably snitch him out from how that man was acting a bit too cunning and how that person acted based on that person's power. Jake thought as he left. "Damn it, Fuck that old man for giving me wrong information regarding that bar. Anyway, I still got some information out of him. Most probably I will get snitched and they will try to set up a trap for me." After Jake left, the bar owner looked around if someone was tailing him or not, after carefully checking out for a few more minutes. The bar owner then left for another place in the town. He knocked on the door 3 times and spoke a password. After some time there was a voice from inside the building. A short man could be seen opening the door as he said to the bar owner, "Come in." The bar owner's name was Damien. "What is it this time, Damien, that you had to personally come over here?" The bar owner hesitated but spoke out, "There is a situation this time around. Someone hired an assassin to hit Black Tiger this time around. It's good that the guy didn't have any accurate information about the bar he was visiting. However, that guy gave me a dangerous feeling, unlike the other amateurs who usually came in the past, so I didn't make a move on him." The short man looked at the man in the back for an answer when that man said, "It seems, that businessman still hasn't given up on my assassination from all those years ago. It's quite hard to target him after I got to know about him from previous assassination attempts." That man was Black Tiger, who Jake was targeting this time around. He looked like a big man. The bar owner hesitatingly asked him, "I have always seen you changing the subject when it comes to the topic of this assassination, but what sort of grudge does that guy have with you that he spends ludicrous amounts of money just to assassinate you all over the years? Plus this time the guy that he hired seems a lot more dangerous than other ones." Black Tiger spoke with a sigh as remembered the incident. "Well, as you know, I am a mercenary and we have our own dirty secrets, and since you asked me about this I might as well tell you today. 9 years ago, like all the previous wars, we were in the borders and were returning after a long march. Since we didn't make a lot of gains during that war, we decided to ransack a border village as we were anyways going to lose that place, so we decided to slave the people and took anything that we could so that we could recover the losses. So a lot of things happened during that ransacking. People who resisted were killed, some were raped and another half of the lot slaved. Unfortunately, after a year someone from our team bragged about the incident and some people got to know about it, and from that moment that businessmen have been trying to assassinate me and my team. After further investigation, we got more information on him and it was revealed that a certain lover of his was residing in that village during that time and just happened to get raped and died later on. Well, a big mercenary unit is hard to control at times, so it's part and parcel of this sort of job. To save my life even I have been trying to assassinate that guy, but till now there has been no result. That guy is loaded with money and bodyguards." The bar owner asked a question. "Master, from your tone it can be seen that you regret that incident. Why did you order the ransacking of the village if you know something like this would mostly happen after that incident if it got leaked?" Meanwhile, the short man was listening from the sidelines. Black Tiger frowned and said, "Well, that's none of your business on why I did it. Anyway, enough of chit-chat, tell me more of your conversation and how that guy looks like." From this Damien understood that Black Tiger didn't want to reveal the person who was behind the works and who gave the order that time to ransack the village. Damien then answered him right away. From his voice, he looks like a young man around 15 to 18 years old, but I can't see his features as he always covered his face like the vagabonds with a black scarf. However, there was one thing peculiar about him, and that is, he gave a dangerous vibe just like those men we observed in the past. "Do you think he is related to them?" Hearing this he was shocked, but then he immediately recovered, thinking that young man's age as that boy wouldn't be able to join them this early. "It's okay, I don't think that guy would have any contacts with those men, as just contacting them requires a lot of money and resources or incredible or horrible luck. Additionally, a guy that young wouldn't be here doing field work. It would at least take him a few years to carry out those work." "Did he have small horns on his head?" Damien immediately replied, "No, I don't think so. He looked like a human, nothing special or different. The only information I gave him was about your schedule, where you usually visited, and the next plans of our visit to the Grand Canyon." Black Tiger was skeptical a bit, but he still asked, "Since you felt that he was stronger than you, then he still didn't try to kill you immediately?" Black Tiger then looked at the short man, who understood that Black wanted him to check the surroundings first. Meanwhile, after Jake left the building, he was observing Damien from a distant place. He also didn't try to kill him, as he confirmed that he was most probably one of the Black Tiger's henchmen. Jake tailed him cautiously using the stealthy steps of hell and reached the place where Damien knocked on the door and said something before entering it. He could see a small fat man before the door closed immediately. Jake thought, I guess he is going to inform about today's event to his masters. I better be cautious and not enter the building without confirming anything. Jake then tailed him to the building. It was only a 2-story building. He climbed to the roof and started to carefully hear their conversation. He heard about the conversation on why that certain guy wanted to kill him, and he also understood that there was more to the previous incident than what was known to others. Most probably a noble or someone in the court controlled this Black Tiger mercenary group and ordered them to ransack the village. Maybe I should extract some information before I kill him. Jake very well remembered about his training on extracting information when he trained with Vlad, and hence his thoughts on getting more information from the Black Tiger. As soon as Black Tiger ordered for a check of the surroundings, Jake immediately threw a poison needle on the body of Damien from behind after he entered through the window. Damien was numbed as the needle struck him. He turned around to see what happened and was shocked to see the guy who met him earlier tailed him all the way without getting noticed. He was sure that he checked multiple times before heading here, but he still got tailed by him. He then fell unconscious as remembered how this guy seemed different and gave a dangerous vibe compared to others. Damien immediately fell on the ground after watching him blend in with the dark. Watching the commotion, the fat guy came inside the room. Jake then threw a knife at the gate from where he heard the footsteps. As soon as the guy came in the room, he was struck with a knife on his throat, which penetrated deep inside his throat. The fat guy caught his own neck as he squirmed like a dying fish on the chopping board. He squealed, raising one of his hands in the direction of Black Tiger before he lost consciousness as he saw both Jake and Black Tiger taking a defensive posture. He was very surprised to see such a young man with such frightening skills to kill 2 veterans in a matter of seconds. Black Tiger was watching this from the sidelines. Black Tiger thought, this guy was able to enter undetected even when I actively searched for anyone tailing Damien. From his movements, it looks like he has mostly been trained by a professional expert in assassinations. The most fearsome aspect of this guy is how fast and aggressively he attacks his enemies. Chapter 74. Gray then signaled to one of his men to go and look at the location where the incident took place. Gray thought a bit and said, so it seems there was something bigger going on than what our employers previously knew. And from the looks of it, it seems that those people in power have gotten more rotten than what I previously thought. He murmured a bit in a soft voice which could hardly be heard, do we need to do some cleansing or wait for a perfect time? One of his men heard him and said, oh please, we have the same problems in Fire Abyss Kingdom, and if not for our assassination business, who knows what sort of business Blucia House would have chosen. This guy had a big beard and an average height. His name was Martin. Gray got irritated as heard this and said to him, then you can bloody expect me to not work over here. And if not for Vlad, I would have rather been a vagabond to achieve my goals. Gray again focused on the current situation and said to Jake, apart from your last decision in the fight, most of your work was on PAR. I guess you weren't trained by Vlad for no reason for achieving these results. Go to the back room and rest, your work here is done. When you have recovered, meet me before you leave for North Frontier Town. Jake nodded and then left for the room upstairs to rest. After watching Jake leave, Martin looked at Gray and said, isn't this kid quite different from others we had seen earlier? Maybe only Daryl is only his match? Gray said in a bland tone, who knows, only time will prove whether he is different or not. However, one thing is for sure, he killed those men without any hesitation, and this is a good sign as an assassin. Martin smiled and said, the fact that he decided to tail the bar owner was good enough, or we would have to go out with him if he left for the bar in the evening or the canyon. This alone proves that he has good instincts and good decision-making, which he took without any hesitation. Gray smiled a bit and said, I guess that was a good decision on his first mission, or he would have fallen for Vlad's trap and struggled more for the current mission, as Black Tiger would have been on his guard. Professor Hague just arrived at the North Frontier town. He was currently in the market looking through people. He looked like a man in his late 50s with a little bit of white hair. He wore a coat like most of the scholars. He was of average height. His eyes were deep as they reflected the pains he had gone through all these years. Professor Hague looked at some slaves who were buying their daily necessities, and he looked quite astonished after looking at their faces. He approached a certain shopkeeper and cautiously asked him, "Hey, if you don't mind, can I ask you a certain question regarding the slaves over there?" The shopkeeper smiled and said, like he always said to the newcomers in this town, "Though I don't know all the details, however, from what I know, I heard that Lord had decided to give the slaves the same wages as other people who work at his factory, as he wanted to reduce their deaths and increase efficiency, and hence these slaves have a different look compared to slaves from other domains." Professor Hague observed keenly and said, "However, that still wouldn't explain that look in their eyes, as their fates are still tied to slavery. Aren't they?" The shopkeeper thought in confusion and said, "I don't know, however, it's still better than nothing, and they may be glad that Lord John bought them instead of someone else." Shopkeeper changed the topic as he didn't like where this conversation was going, as he said to him, "Anyway, why don't you try this specialty from our town? It is called a hot dog. It's quite delicious. It is rumored that Baron John personally created some of the dishes we recently provided in our stalls. And it was also under his orders that Hope spread their various recipes to the locals." Hague could see a lot, unlike what others couldn't see, as had researched a lot on the topic of slavery and understood the mentality of slaves, and from what he saw he believed they were commoners just like others who didn't show any signs of slavery if not for the slavery mark. Hague murmured in a small voice, "I guess his plan for removing slavery systematically was true when he wrote it in his letter, and not just lip service from him when he mentioned that." Hague saw the shopkeeper as he prepared the hot dog for him with sauce sprayed on it. "It's a pretty interesting snack. Which type of herbs are you using on it? Is it really edible?" The shopkeeper smiled a bit, as he had experienced the same thing earlier, and said in an all-knowing tone to Hague, "Alone, they may not be edible, but if mixed with certain things they are quite delicious. Recently a lot of chefs in Hope are experimenting a lot with various herbs and trying to make various dishes. If you want to try something special, then I would recommend you to go to Hope and try their ice creams, as they have quite the reputation and are always sold out, as they are liked by the traveling merchants and nobles." Hague looked at Tornwall and asked, "Is he really the boss of the forge? He doesn't look like a slave, as he has quite an intimidating demeanor and looks like someone who is experienced at this work." The shopkeeper laughed after looking at Tornwall and said, "Well, he is a slave only in name. He will most probably be freed in a few years after making some achievements. He is the chief forger of the town and has quite an influence on Baron. Recently, from the rumors, I heard that Baron John just started the construction of a brewery for him and his men for his recent achievements." Hague, "The commoners here have a different look compared to the commoners of other bordering towns. What is the difference between them?" The shopkeeper said, "It is most likely the taxes, which were reduced to the minimum in the whole of Elias' kingdom by the Baron, and solving the current problem on yields which occurred recently." Hague was quite surprised at the reduction of taxes from John as a new noble. He thought, "Quite surprising. I think protection of a domain requires a lot of money and resources. I wonder why he is so confident that he reduced the taxes to the bare minimum." Hague looked around and saw that someone was looking after him. He smiled and thought, "It seems he already knows about my arrival here and sent some men either for observation or my protection. I guess they are amateurs from the way they are tailing me. They may be the recently recruited personnel and need more training. Anyway, I guess I should try the famous ice cream here, which I heard about in Imperial Capital as well." Hague smiled a bit as he thought of ice cream, paid his bill and asked the shopkeeper before leaving, "So can you give me directions for that famous restaurant, Hope?" The shopkeeper gave him directions happily as he tended to other customers. Hague immediately left for Hope. Meanwhile, the men tailing Hague thought. One of the men was Joe tailing Hague. He thought and asked, "Is he some big shot or spy that we need to keep an eye on?" Other man, Marsh said after hearing him, mostly likely a big shot, as we were ordered to keep him safe if any commotion occurs. Marsh then continued as he removed a small diary and began to write the current events. I guess Jay has his own thoughts. We should just complete our job and report about the happenings which take place. Our only job is data collection and reporting to our superiors. Joe said in an angry tone as he heard of giving reports. Damn, we have to write all this shit, can't we just report him in verbal instead of writing? Marsh smiled as he understood, as Joe hated it, and said to him, well, it is compulsory for every official to attend the schools and universities. I guess it would be beneficial for us later on. Joe cursed out in a murmur, fuck this, I hate it. Joe sighed as he irritatingly said, I guess it's part of the job, and since Jay says it, I will do my best. But I still friggin' hate it. Marsh smiled and said, ha ha ha, it's okay, some people felt the same and you are only one expressing these emotions, and John says that it is necessary, then I guess it would be necessary for everyone. Both of them were local men which Jay hired for the police force, and they were currently doing their job of tailing Hague instead, as Jay was currently lacking men. Marsh, come, it looks like he is entering Hope for the famous ice cream, I guess he is a big shot. Joe's eyes sparkled as he saw the big restaurant, as he grinned with a big smile and said to Marsh, come, we should follow him in the restaurant as it is part of our job. Marsh sighed as he understood from Joe's smile that he wanted to bill the ice cream to their work-related expenses because of their need to tail Hague in Hope. Marsh couldn't say no as he said, okay, we will go in and follow him. I bet Jay would curse us for more expenses. Joe laughed as he entered in a jolly mood and said to Marsh, it's okay, you don't have to worry, he himself is a big foodie and comes here every day. So I don't think it's a big deal. Both of them entered as they tailed Hague from behind. Chapter 75. Martha noticed them after they entered the establishment. Seeing the looks on their faces, immediately she let out a sigh of exasperation. I guess Jay is footing the bill tonight. Meanwhile, Hague calmly sat at his table as he watched the comedic scene happening before his eyes. Laughing slightly, he thought, damn, their eyes mean that the food here is more attractive than their observation target. Ha ha ha, who would have thought? They are professional at protecting and observing me. Hey. If I didn't notice them earlier, even I would have thought that they were just here as customers. A few hours after Blackdagger's assassination, Gray and his men were scouting the area where Jake assassinated Black Tiger and his men. Astonishment filled their eyes as they noticed that the area was barely even damaged at all. The big bearded man quietly remarked to Gray, with an obvious tone of happiness and pride. Ha, the little bastard did a pretty clean job, hey. If not for the injury, it would have been a perfect job, well done. Overhearing his words, Gray turned around and commented. It's all part of the learning process of being an assassin. Only with experience will perfection truly be achieved, but remember, experience isn't usable most of the time. Only through honing your instincts will your battle sense improve, and will you be able to deal with your enemies faster. Many at times, it's usually your instincts that tends to decide the life and death of you or your enemy. Humph, he is young and just needs time to train. The big bearded man, Martin thought a bit. Guess you are right. The more talent you have, the better your chances of survival will be in this survival of the fittest world. Well, he is doing great for just a beginner. Anyways, regarding the completion of Jake's mission, I already informed my men about it. He is currently traveling to the north to say, any other orders other than that. For now, just keep a look on the men over there, like you said they might be related to the masterminds behind the previous incident. We can't let it happen again. Gray then looked at Jake's room with slight emotions brewing from within. He walked away and spoke. Keep a look on that kid's situation, I'll be out to take a look at that situation for a while. Meanwhile, a meeting was held in John's mansion between Refone, John, Tornwall, and Taylor, as they were personally called by John a day before. Ryan reported his recent accomplishments and works to John. Happiness filled his heart as he began to speak with excitement and pride. The construction of the brewery has already started after I met Taylor and heard about Tornwall's amazing performance previously. After starting it, the only thing now is the distillation machines which you mentioned before and given to Tornwall to handle. Now it's just on his end and we are waiting for him in order to finish the project and start the brewery operations. Luckily, there is a piece of good news this time. After checking out the cement and experimenting with a lot of materials for construction, it seems that when the cement is mixed with mulberry glue, the results have proven that the toughness is 200% stronger. Its solidity can allow us to construct stronger structures too. It was an unexpected discovery that we learned about after an accident happened at the construction site. John was quite surprised after hearing this and happily laughed out loudly. Never expected that useless fruit actually being so useful, quite an unexpected discovery that mulberry glues actually increased the properties of cement. Refone, reward the person who contributed to the discovery. Refone smugly replied. Already ahead of you, we rewarded the person who discovered this shocking effect of the fusion between cement and mulberry glues. This also sped up the construction speed by quite a fair bit too. Most of this newly found trick has also been implemented in various industries and quite a lot of it was useful in the road constructions. Due to the increased speed of construction, the need for labor has reduced. John nodded in agreement and seemingly satisfied with the way that Refone handled the situation, and immediately gave his orders. This discovery must be kept top secret and classified from others. The people involved in it will be under a gag order and rewarded appropriately in order to prevent any information leak, though make sure the involved officials know about this. Though it won't affect us as much since cement making is a secret, but the prices of mulberry fruits for sure will increase if anyone ever knew of its useful ability to increase the properties of cement. Refone, from now on stock up on as many mulberry fruits as possible. It will be one of the strategic resources for us in the long run. Furthermore, continue experimenting with various tests which would give us better results. Refone smiled a bit and said, I already expected this and had immediately ordered my men to buy as many mulberry fruits as we can, since we require these materials in large quantities for the construction from now on. After Refone completed his report, Taylor came and said to John, Lord, Jake has completed the mission given to him earlier and Mr. Vlad ordered me to inform you about his current situation. According to the letter, Jake was injured during the mission. He is currently recovering at one of the bases of the Blucia family in Redwood City near the imperial capital. After hearing this, John said, It seems that problems occurred while he was on the mission. Anyways, it's good that he is back safe and sound. Are there any movements from the other nobilities? After saying so, Taylor handed over a document that contained information as he summarized the report. Currently, the only movement is from Prince Hector's side. He is preparing for a big banquet that he organized for the Sun Festival after this month. There are also movements from the Duke of the West. He is funding more pirates to interrupt our trade routes. Recently Joseph's fleet was also under the attack of pirates. If not for the high defense abilities and the fact that Joseph and Co were prepared for confrontation like that to occur, they would have probably lost their lives from that attack. John said in a small tone. It seems that Duke Blackwolf has already started moving against us. Hey, I guess we need to arm Joseph or else it would be bad for us. John smiled a bit and continued. What do you think about arming them with half-powered ballistas? We can also demonstrate it in front of the other officials of the kingdom in order to showcase our power and wealth. This will pull some of the officials and nobles in to try to get us to their side and we will be able to get better backings and stature. What do you think would be the perfect time for such a show? This time Tornwall smiled as he understood him and said to everyone present. I think the best time would be to test our weapons before Prince Hector's banquet. We should also announce the sales of the ballistas to Joseph's fleet on the same day too. It would be quite a scene for the aristocrats supporting Prince Hector but drooling over our ballistas. We can at least deter Duke Blackwolf if not Prince Hector because of his royal connections. However, it would at least make other aristocrats take a position on the fence since they would like to acquire those ballistas. John smiled and said. We think so much alike, as proposed by Tornwall, we will announce our official tests of ballistas 5 days before Prince Hector's banquet. In addition, I will announce about the sales of those weapons to Joseph's fleet as a goodwill gesture." Tornwall nodded in agreement and said, "A good decision. Lying as ducks won't take us anywhere. We need to show some strength if we want others to respect us, the same is the case if we want power and wealth." Chapter 76. Near the imperial capital at Redwood City. At the place where Black Tiger died, one of the inspecting men of the domain lord said after looking at all the corpses, "It's a work of a professional, clean and precise. From the wounds it looks that the assassin used a lot of potent poisons. He was most probably a speedy guy from how he could inflict these many wounds on Black Tiger. While looking at those other 2 guys, they seemed to have died in an ambush. The assassin most probably targeted them first since they were weaker ones." The guy who was speaking looked like a middle-aged tall man with long hair and a tan. His name was Rudolph. The other man was Greg. He had an average height as a person and black hair. Greg spoke after hearing Rudolph's speculation, "Anyways, it is good that he is already dead. We were already having enough headache with him and his men and them neglecting laws willfully over here. I was always pissed that we could never take action against his men." Rudolph smiled a bit as he spoke. Who knows, maybe Lord himself was his patron and hence his stay over here. So all that headache may just be a ruse to fool everyone including his enemies. As soon as Greg heard it, Greg made a funny motion with his fingers which told Rudolph that he should keep quiet and not implicate him with his words. "SHH. Are you intending to kill yourself and take me along with you on your journey to hell after speaking these words in public? Some things aren't intended to be spoken aloud unless you are powerful. It's good that it was only me who heard this over here. God knows what would if any of the other men heard it." Rudolph smoked his cigarette, laughed and spoke to him. "Do you think I am that dumb to speak this in front of others? I trust you enough that I can talk anything I like in front of you." Greg grinned and said, "Who knows, I won't vouch for your dumbass behavior if someone asked me. Meanwhile, I heard a rumor that this guy was involved in the illegal slave trade of our own people during the war to recuperate his losses. Do you think it is true? And if it is true, why didn't anyone take any action against him?" Rudolph laughed mockingly and said, You don't understand the nature of war. There is not only one guy or mercenaries involved in this slave trade, but a lot of aristocrats are also involved in it. Many times some nobles are involuntarily involved as they would not want to be left out in that group, so many nobles have to pretend in the upper circles. We don't know for certain if our lord is involved or not. But I know for sure that a lot of them are involved in it. This is what I heard from the inner circles of our lord. Anyways, some people are coming in our direction. Let's not talk about this anymore." Greg too hushed and spoke, "Yeah, we better not. Anyway, so what's your conclusion on the reason for this guy's death?" Rudolph thought seriously and spoke his thoughts. "A professional guy. It looks like the assassin tailed the bar owner to their hideout and started his ambush from the window. A silly choice, however a very clean job." Rudolph looked at the bar owner and said, "Our sources never knew that this bar owner was one of his men. He was pretty good at hiding his real identity. What do you think?" Greg thought a bit and gave his conclusions. It might be because he was recruited later on by Black Tiger, or they intentionally didn't contact each other for the initial years so people don't doubt him. As a bar owner, he has a pretty good source of information from all the people traveling here. So it is expected that he might be a spy of one faction or other, since selling information is quite a profitable job." Greg smiled and continued, "Don't you think the same?" Rudolph rebuked frustratingly as heard about information brokers. However, it has its own dangers as well, like how he met his fate today because of being on the wrong side. One of Gray's men were near them and spoke to each other. Still no new information, the same old shit, a lot of people being involved in the previous slaving which included a lot of nobles. However, Black Tiger being someone's pawn is something new. We would have to investigate deeply to find something new. Black Tiger always gave the impression of someone who is wild and free. I guess everyone has masks just like us and he had one as well. Anyways, let's report it to the higher UPS and get this job done, as a lot of people are increasing in volume over here. I bet most of them are from Domain Lord. Another man nodded and spoke, okay, I will work on it immediately. The big bearded guy Martin said after he heard their report, it seems that Black Tiger was indeed supported by an aristocrat from the western part of the kingdom. This is what we can confirm, as that incident took place in the western border. Most probably at least 2 big nobles of at least marquis rank were involved in this scandal, and that may also be the reason they were able to keep this under wraps. However, it is hard to guess, because he did work for a lot of dirty work of nobles from what we know about the past deeds of his men. To others, it only looked like he was doing any work for good pay, and it is also because of this reason our target had been cautious enough to not reveal any obvious links between them. Gray heard him and said, my gut feeling is telling me that someone even bigger is involved in this incident, and are using other small pawns as a medium to not get directly involved. Gray seriously said as he continued, there is another reason which is bugging me. Black Tiger didn't even flinch when he made his decision kill himself, as he concluded that he would reveal more information if he was under Jake's interrogation for longer periods of time. And as he was willing to die for him, this means that he either trusts his backer enough to keep his word, or he is someone who is very strong and has enough authority that even Black Tiger fears him. This is what I can conclude if what that brat is saying is the truth. Martin joked a bit and said one of his conclusion, another reason may be because of your reputation, I mean our organization's reputation over here at Elias Kingdom, that he didn't trust us enough when Jake offered him a way out. Gray nodded seriously and said as if that was natural, I guess that holds true as well. I would have most probably killed him after I got information from him. He needed a pretty good reason for me to spare his life. Martin grinned as he heard Gray's answer and thought, I guess this joke never gets old. Martin spoke after hearing Gray and asked one of his conclusions, anyway, we still got something good out of this mission, which may involve a big scandal and leave some leads. What do you think about the Domain Lord of Redwood City? Gray added, suspicious from what I know, most likely a pawn in the bigger picture. Anyway, report and send a coded letter about the current situation here, and also make sure to report our findings to Vlad when another caravan heads towards North Frontier City. Martin laughed a bit and said, you don't need to worry, nowadays a lot of people head for trade and travel, so it's safe these days when it comes to sending spies. In a certain mansion near the capital, a man's shadow reflected as he said, so Black Tiger was assassinated in the end. Don't send any of our men from now on to guess about any leads of the incident. It would only give others more leads about our involvement in that incident years ago. Try to gather information from other nobles, as we are only interested in gossip. It would also prevent those guys who assassinated Black Tiger to not get any leads back to us. Ha ha ha, let them guess for ages. That man laughed at the end as he gave orders to one of his trusted men. His silhouette reflected that he was in luxurious clothes. He continued, as for his brother, give him his medicine which we promised, and feed him enough hatred about the guys who assassinated his brother. It would be quite a dramatic scene between both the parties wanting revenge if they ever meet head to head and fight. This will also make us honor our promise to Black Tiger. I wonder how Black Tiger would feel if he knew about this plan, a pitiful soul indeed. His confidant nodded and agreed with the man on the throne, indeed, a brilliant plan, Lord, this would keep our enemies at bay with little to no information at their disposal. I would immediately convey these orders. The man on the throne spoke as he seemed quite fearful of the man he was talking about, do you have any news on that madman? The aide sighed as he saw his lord's fear of the man he was talking about and reported, nothing concrete yet, just that he was using a certain upstart to diss all the aristocrats in the capital. Even his own men don't know what he will plan in the end. Many times he works on instincts and changes his plans abruptly. He is someone who likes to flip the table. Chapter 77. Jake recovered in 2 days after resting up at Gray's base. During these 2 days, he heard a lot of commotion in the base because of the continuous movement of people. Martin, it is good that you have recovered so fast because of the potions and your own body's capability. Many people would have taken up at least 10 to 15 days to recover from those injuries. Meanwhile, there is good news for you. It seems because of the information you provided us last time, we got some clues about the previous incident. Many people thought it was only done by Blackheart, but it seems there were many people involved in it. You can leave any time as you have recovered already. Master Vlad might already be waiting for you at North Frontier Town. Jake thought and replied, I will leave for North Frontier Town today as I have already recovered. As for the previous mission, as I have already completed it and reported all the things required, you guys can continue to do as you wish with that information, so I won't be involved in it anymore. Martin saw that Jake was a bit down and thought, I guess he is down because of the injury and the mistake he did during his mission. Well, compared to others on their first mission, he did quite well, which is well above industry standards, as they wouldn't even be doing this sort of B-rank job from the start. Martin said to Jake, you don't need to feel down after hearing about the previous mission, you did quite well compared to other people who start doing their missions. They wouldn't even be doing this level of mission from the start. I guess Lord Vlad trusted in your capability and was quite confident in you when he gave you this mission. I think only some people would even achieve this sort of performance. I think Gray could be one. I heard rumors that he was quite a proficient assassin when he started doing missions. You could wait for Gray to come, as he is out doing some investigations of his own, however I don't know when he will return. Jake smiled and said, I guess it's okay, you guys can handle the previous incident. I would like to go North Frontier Town and join both Master and Lord, as I was given orders to immediately return after completing the mission. Jake thought of Gray and his carefree rude attitude and said, nah, tell him that I already left and it will be evening soon, so I should probably leave early. If there is something, you guys can send me a letter to Lord John's mansion or to Master. Meanwhile, Jake had his own thoughts on what Martin said. I guess I have set high expectations and goals for myself. The previous incident was a fatal mistake during last mission, and I could have died if not for my instinctive reflexes and training with Master and Lord. I still have a long way to reach the Master's standard when it comes to combat. I need to train more. Meanwhile, Baron Mendez at Dolores. Baron Mendez and Antonio were treating another noble. He was a count up in the north of Elias Kingdom. His name was Casey White, while his domain bordered south of Baron Mendez's domain. Recently he was traveling north because he heard a lot of rumors about the increase of volume in trade. This was also noted by his men and financial officers observing trade routes and tolls, as a lot of goods recently passed to the north and he received a lot of taxes from the transit of goods from north and south, which was usually dull as it was only one-way street with maximum trade being carried out in south. This was one of the reasons he was curious. Count Casey said after having a feast at Baron Mendez's mansion, I guess this food was still a lot better than the ones I usually eat, however, it still pales in comparison with the new dish which I recently ate at North Frontier Town's Hope restaurant. Count Casey said these words instinctively as he recently visited North Frontier and it was quite a different city from what he had expected. Baron Mendez frowned as he heard this sentence again from another noble. However, he couldn't help but sigh. Count Casey grinned a bit and said, well, you two are earning a lot in restaurant business these days. How did you manage to get those recipes out of him? Some of them are not yet public. Mendez grinned as he heard him. Well, I did make sure to squeeze him dry when he wanted to buy that shitty town. I heard he recently even tacitly rejected the Radiant Church. Hey, what a fool. I guess he still doesn't realize the power of the Radiant Church. He will either regret his decision when we are at war in the West, or he might have to pay a lot to hire light magicians, as there is always a shortage of those guys. Mendez continued irritatingly, well, it's good that he didn't align with those guys, or it would be a lot of headache for everyone. I guess I also got rid of that hot potato, North Frontier Town. It would have been a disaster for me later on. I guess it was a blessing in disguise to have that rich fool wanting to protect his comrades. Mendez laughed as he ended. Count said his opinion seriously as he heard him. I guess it may be because of the Radiant Church's ego and them trying to exert their control and power, as he has a close relationship with the Blucia house, that they got rejected. As for that town, who knows? However, I can see a lot of changes being carried out over there. He has quite an ambitious plan, however, a risky one. Mendez understood and gave a neutral opinion. I guess that's true, however he would still have to spend a lot in future for the healing services, because, from the way his town is rapidly developing into a city, he would at some point need the light magicians, and I wonder how he would cope with the situation when he faces a war and Radiant Church decides to play hard. I guess he will learn about their power the hard way when he faces a problem. I think he would also have to expand his domain in the north, and it would be very interesting at that point, as he still doesn't know what unknowns lie, whether it is in the kingdom or the wilds. Anyways, do you have any news on Duke's position? Count Casey smiled at the question and said, well, as you know, Duke Norman is aligned with Prince Hector, so you can already guess his position. This also stems from the fact that Duke Norman's daughter is already engaged to Prince Hector. And the fact that a new baron didn't pay any respects or give a message to him as a northern duke, this also angers him greatly. He guessed that Baron did this because of his relationship with Prince Hector and the fact that Duke might have humiliated him greatly for his previous behavior at the auction. Baron Mendez said, well, we all already know that he most probably would have humiliated him for Prince Hector, as he is his future son-in-law. However, I still wanted to confirm his position. Count thought as he said with a rebuke when he mentioned Sapphire Rose, I guess that is true as well. However, I think the bigger reason is the alignment of that upstart noble with Marquis Ray and the half-elf, Duke of Southern Forest, Sapphire Rose, via the use of his other businesses. Duke most probably harbors more anger because he had shrugged that off upstart earlier after he received some reports of their agreement. And it was only later that he understood the significance of the high-end soap business. At first, he thought Sapphire Rose and Marquis Ray only intended to piss him off over an upstart noble, as he laughed off at first. I think he got more angrier after realizing he himself was one of the users of those soaps. It would be quite hilarious. However, I can still bet he still uses those soaps, as they have better quality compared to other products in the market, and that is one of the reasons it is a big hit in the high-end market. And the most probable reason is their hate over the years, which has only compounded over the years. Count chuckled as he added the last sentence. There was clear disdain when he mentioned the half-elf Duke. Baron also laughed as he heard this and said, I guess both Duke and I had the same thoughts, as those soaps are really too good. However, that guy still has a flaw, and that is strength. He still hasn't gathered any knights or magicians from anywhere. He only has a ragtag bunch of slave warriors who lost on the battlefield, from what my guys have observed. I guess it's natural that knights would not want to join an upstart noble, as it is risky for their careers. Baron Mendez continued as he added seriously, however, he still has some good people when it comes to protecting business secrets. I tried a lot of infiltration in his workshops with my men, but most of them are either dead or crippled. I don't know how he hired those type of guys. Baron said with a sigh. Count Casey smiled as he heard Mendez and spoke in an all-knowing manner, I guess you still don't know about the backing of Blucia House's Miss Diana and one of Duke Blucia's most trust men, Vlad. I think that upstart most probably provided a lot of benefits to them in return for their help. I saw a lot of carriages going to northwest of Elias towards Fire Abyss Kingdom these days. The interesting fact was it was being protected by high-end mercenaries. So it was most probably the soaps which they intended to sell in the whole of Fire Abyss Kingdom. Casey was annoyed as he continued his frustrating talk. Well, I didn't even try to infiltrate him, as I knew I couldn't best the assassins from the Blucia house. I rather tried to buy them directly at Hope after I tasted their food. When I saw their chefs, I directly offered some of them positions of the chief chef at my mansion, but all of them rejected my offer. I guess most of them are either locals and are quite grateful to the guy, or they have big wages as well. What I didn't like was the fact that they were making those slaves work in such a high-end restaurant after I heard that from someone local. Even if slaves were working, then that slave at least should have worked in a high-end place before as a commoner before working here. I guess upstarts will be upstarts who don't know anything about noble etiquette. Meanwhile at North Frontier Town. There were many changes taking place at the North Frontier Town which were getting noticed by everyone. It was especially the visitors who noticed most of the changes. Chapter 78. Meanwhile at North Frontier Town. There were many changes taking place at the North Frontier Town which were getting noticed by everyone. It was especially the visitors who noticed most of the changes. The most important change was the volume of people who visited North Frontier Town these days, which encouraged a lot of businesses. This was coupled with the fact that John encouraged a lot of business policies which included reducing taxes to the lowest point in his domain in the whole of Elias' kingdom. The lower taxes helped the businesses as well as the local populace, which reduced the prices of basic necessities and inflation. The people engaged in farming were also pleased by the farming policies introduced by John. This was coupled with the fact that they previously saw real results after conducting his theory. Now people were able to buy livestock, which reduced the need for labor. In the settlement farms of North Frontier City, Michael, a farmer, was chatting with one of his mates on the farm as usual. Lord's policies have helped us cope a lot with the recent food problem, and this has also increased the productivity of yields. How do you feel? Kevin, his mate, said, laughing. Ha ha ha, yes, that's true. Because of the reduced taxes and increase in yields, we were able to buy some livestock for our farms. When the caravan arrived for trade this time, they were quite prepared because of the demand for livestock from their previous trip. This time we were able to buy livestock without paying high prices because of enough supply by all the merchants recently arriving for grabbing an opportunity. This time we purchased a horse, 2 calves, and 2 chickens which we planned to raise for a while. While because of my wife's insistence we even purchased a foal, as she intended to send that brat to the school and make him a properly educated knight from all the tales she has heard. I thought we could buy him a horse later on when he is ready. Kevin sighed as spoke about her unreasonable demands. Additionally, coupled with the fact that now my son works as a part-timer in one of the paper factories introduced by Lord. It has increased the income of our household, so we would be pooling our money to buy more livestock, so she has quite a free hand nowadays when it comes to money. Additionally, I am happy for the sole fact that we won't have to move and abandon our lands as we did usually, and this alone reduces the burden for the whole town, so I guess I can always spare more money now thanks to it. Michael laughed as he heard the gossip of Kevin's home. I guess that's good, as previously because of high taxes we were barely able to save anything, not to mention the thought of buying livestock to reduce labor. However, I wonder if it is really okay to have reduced taxes, because Lord might be footing our bill and have a shortage of money for forming a legion to protect our borders. Michael thought worriedly as he spoke in the end. Kevin laughed as he heard him. Haha, you don't need to worry that much. Recently I met one of the village heads in the meeting of our settlement. Many of the village heads previously had the same thoughts, but Lord and his officials have assured that there are no issues regarding money, and they have already started preparations about the issue of security first thing in mind. My son said the same as he heard one of the gossips from heads of paper factories, so everyone was quite relieved. Another person arrived at the settlement farm for their usual weekend gossip. Thomas Atan, but he was tall and had rather sharp features. Thomas said to them as he heard their conversation, "That true, we don't need to worry about money for now." Secretly the heads have discussed that if needed they would rather raise a fundraiser like we usually do cope with the monsters. Actually, the thing which cheered me up the most was the arrival of our mates who left for work in cities because of lack of land or employment. Many of them faced hardships and some even got slaved because of accumulation of debts. However, recently some of the guys have been spreading bad rumors about Lord in the city about how he is aggressively buying slaves, which will only increase the problem of slave trade. Michael thought and said, I guess there are always some bad apples who either change due to time, the lure of money, or pain of hardships. If Lord was so bad he wouldn't have given so many privileges to slaves, unlike the others who don't even treat them like a human. Anyway, don't let these guys ruin the atmosphere of North Frontier Town. No, I mean city. They will only create chaos and nothing good will come out of it. It's better we already warn others about these miscreants. Kevin interjected, well, I think the recent rumors of forming of internal force has taken these factors into consideration, however it is not yet official. So I think the Lord has it all planned out and won't let miscreants ruin this city. Michael asked with a surprised face, is it real? I thought they were just rumors. Kevin nodded and said, well, those youngsters are acting quite suspiciously nowadays and aren't saying anything about their job. Thomas, it's okay as Jay is the one accompanying them. I guess they are intending to take the local boys into the internal force. I guess I will be going now or my wife will nag for coming late since we will be going to the weekend market today. Take care. Kevin and Michael looked at each and said to Thomas, wait, let us join you today. It has been quite a long time since we had relaxed in such a good mood as we usually had to worry about our next meals and taxes. One of the frequent visitors asked a local. Hey, I see a lot of locals have started their own business in North Frontier Town and many of them are involved in the new varieties of food which came out of Lord John's mansion. Is it really okay? The local guy said, about that, you don't have to worry about it. It was actually encouraged by the mansion for people to start businesses and those recipes were actually distributed by Madame Martha of Hope. Even you as an outsider could start it. The mansion hopes to improve the food culture as well as encourage people to innovate whether it is food or other fields. So many people have started businesses and are trying to make new types of delicacies from their profits in the hopes of getting the honor to work in the mansion one day, plus this has actually helped the locals in earning extra income. Glenn and Prague just arrived at the North Frontier city. Glenn looked and said to Prague, this city has given me quite a surprise whether it is the roads, food, or the newly constructed structures over here. What do you say, Prague? Prague thought and said, I was quite surprised as well, it is mostly the roads and structures which have surprised me the most. From what I heard from a local, even they don't know how these roads are being made. There are rumors that it was personally created by Lord John and he is intending to rebuild the whole using those materials. Those guys constructing the roads were well equipped with arms in the transit route. I guess there were officials who wanted to keep it a secret. Glenn smiled and said, well, I am more interested in their food, paper, and how they will provide us resources for publishing. From Eva and others, I heard that the food here is quite good, so come let's try the best food over here. Prague thought and said, best food? I guess then it's the Hope restaurant which is becoming famous everywhere in the Elias Kingdom. This place is quite different from what I heard in the rumors. This place seems as lively as the imperial capital and it is quite clean compared to the shitty streets of the capital. I guess people can walk quite freely without getting concerned about landing the wrong foot. However, this place is quite vulnerable to wolves. What do you think? Glenn understood when Prague mentioned the word wolves and said, I don't think the Lord here is quite naive to believe that he can do anything without strength. If he didn't have the strength, then his soap-making techniques would have long been leaked to the major soap makers or other forces. Anyway, first head to Hope. I am itching to have a meal over there. Those shitty brats at the university made me quite jealous after talking about the ice cream of North Frontier Town. And as we have already made a decision, we can't head back now. The Arrow had already left the bow when we gave our resignations. Glenn said excitedly as he headed to Hope in a hurry. Quite a lot of architects have been visiting this town on a frequent basis these days to get inspiration on new designs. I was quite surprised to hear that Refone from the imperial capital had decided to work here after watching the architecture of Lord John's mansion. You might not know, but previously he was shortlisted among the 10 architects required by the royal family. However, he was quite bored after some days and decided to travel and explore, as he felt he was doing the same thing without exploring anything, as the royal family had strict requirements for building grand structures without major changes. Glenn thought and said, well, everything has its pros and cons. There were resources at his disposal, yet not. Maybe that rejection letter was a blessing in disguise for us after watching this city. Who knows what type of restrictions they would have placed on us if I was ever decided to be selected by those bunch of old men at Imperial University. Prague heard and said, quite a food for thought, but what do you think about those dramas funded by Baron John over here at the theatre in the market and streets? Chapter 79. Glenn grinned and said, I guess Baron is quite fond of art, literature, and culture. Maybe we should watch one of those dramas in the theater before heading to Baron's mansion. There are already some guys tailing us. I guess they are amateurs. What do you think? Prague sighed as remembered and spoke with a bitter expression. I think this may be because of our increased senses which we got after training during our childhood when we trained to become knights before the fall of our houses. However, this time both Joe and Marsh understood they were spotted, unlike the last time when they were tailing Hague. It was later at the restaurant that they realized that Hague was watching them with a playful smile and curiosity as they got exposed. Last time they were rebuked by Jay for their blunder of getting exposed, however that experience improved them slowly but steadily. After getting exposed, Marsh decided to meet them head-on as he signaled Joe to come with him and said, like he had practiced with Jay during the training sessions, "Hello, this is my colleague Joe and I am Marsh. We were tailing you for your protection and didn't want you to get disturbed, so don't get alarmed by our presence. We were ordered by our superiors to keep both of you safe. As compensation, let us foot the bill for the lunch." Glenn nodded and shook his hand with them as he said, "It's okay, I can see that you guys don't have any malicious intentions and are only doing your job. As we previously trained as knights, we are quite perceptive when it comes to our surroundings. When you mentioned compensation, is the compensation given by both of you or Lord John?" Glenn thought as he wanted to save more money and asked them. Marsh smiled and said, "It will be borne by the mansion as we were already ordered to treat you with the utmost respect." Marsh understood that many professors were coming here due to their bad circumstances who hoped to save money to publish their own works as he invited them. Joe expectantly said after hearing their conversation, "Well, why don't we head already? I am quite bored." Marsh face-palmed as he heard Joe and thought, "Why do you have to ruin the party because of that stinky mouth of yours? I was barely able to make some good impression on them. What if they decide to head back after hearing from you? I would be rebuked by Jay for not keeping you under control." Glenn and Prague laughed as they watched both of them. Glenn laughed heartily, said to Joe, "You are quite a straightforward guy, I guess we will get along quite well. Come, let's head to Hope first, then we will go and see the drama." Glenn was smiling today as he thought, "I guess I feel quite free after leaving the Imperial City and meeting these people here. I think losing stress did the trick and reduced my burden for thinking about those damn old men monopolizing all power and decisions." Glenn looked around and said, "People traveling at this town is increasing day by day, what do you think?" Prague thought a bit and spoke, "I think it is because of the newly discovered food culture, various new types of architecture and attractions. Meanwhile, there is a lot of opportunity for trade, so I think a lot of people are traveling and exploring this town because of all the blends mixed with various interests. Merchants meanwhile are quite fond of this new type of road, which is reducing the normal maintenance costs of their carriages. Meanwhile, the nobles have enough time and money to enjoy the luxuries of this town, so I guess they are here, while only some may have malicious intentions when they travel here. Recently Lord's mansion has been gathering mulberry fruits in large quantities. Many people speculate that it is for making a new dish they made recently, so they don't want to be in short supply when they introduce the new dish, so it is a new opportunity for traders near the village." Glenn heard Prague's analysis and said, "I guess what you said is true. This town has a lot to offer, unlike the imperial capital. This includes tourism, food, trade opportunities, and the wilds with a blend of nature. However, I think there will be a problem with nobles, even though Lord is trying to control these issues. I guess the problem will be solved when he releases the new laws." Meanwhile, in the outskirts of North Frontier Town, in the middle of a certain conversation at a certain place, there was a man with a scarf whose face can't be seen was talking to another man. The man with the scarf said, "I can give you half the blueprints of that soap-making machine, but I know for sure that it won't work as it is only one half. I don't know anything about another half. So it will be your own risk if you decide to buy the blueprints. And how would you compensate me for leaking such information? You do realize that my life will be in danger after they realize that their techniques have been leaked." The man with a cunning face and curly hair said, "You shouldn't worry about it, the royal family will be the one who will protect you, so you shouldn't worry about an upstart noble. I don't think they would dare offend the royal family over a leak. It would have leaked one way or another. As for one half, you shouldn't worry much about it, we will handle those problems on our own, you only need to provide those blueprints. As for your assurance, here take this token. The man smiled and gave him the token and said, this is proof if you doubt our identity. You can use this token which will signify that you are a patron of Prince Hector and any attack on you is an attack on us. Here is the advanced gold for your job, the other half will be given to you after you complete the job. The man with the scarf was only worried about their identity, however, after confirming their identity he was quite relieved after watching the token. The man with the scarf took the token and said to him, follow me, I trust this token as this is a legitimate token. The man said, well, I knew this would work as Lord had personally handed me this token in case you don't trust me. I guess you have already made your decision. The man with the scarf nodded and headed towards a certain direction, wait over here, I will come over in a few minutes as getting the blueprints. After a few minutes, the man with the scarf came again and handed him an envelope, I hope you guys keep your word as you said earlier. The cunning man smirked and said, we will, you don't have to worry much about it. Both of them parted as their meeting ended. Glenn came out of the restaurant as he spoke, this restaurant's cuisine precedes its reputation. There was quite a variety of delicacies which I had never seen before. I think even the royal kitchen would pale in front of this restaurant. Prague too nodded as he remembered the various delicious dishes he had tried earlier at Hope, quite true, I had been to a lot of banquets but I never had food like this ever before. This restaurant alone would have compelled me to come and work over here if I knew about the delicious food in this town. Glenn too agreed and said, I agree as well, now I understood why that Joe was so happy as soon as he heard about dining at this restaurant, come let's go and watch the theater first. I wonder what kind of philosophical works they would show over there. You guys can come as well since you paid for our lunch, I guess we will treat you to the theater. Prague too nodded as he spoke, I heard Lord John personally wrote some works to launch this theater so that it could become famous among the masses. His very intention is to make people familiar with art, culture, and literature. It should be quite entertaining as we had anyway planned to tour today I guess we should make the most of it. Prague said as they headed to the newly released theater. Meanwhile, Marsh thought, damn, does this look like a job where we are tailing and protecting our targets from the shadows? Diril and Men said, ha ha ha, these two clowns are quite amusing in their own sense. Another man said, well they are new to the job and hence their amateur behavior. Another of the men asked, since they were here, why were we needed in the first place? The first man said, well it was Jay who requested our presence as he hoped to give protections to these guests as they left the Imperial University in a sensitive time. Diril too laughed and said, them being clowns is quite true, anyway it is trust which is more important in positions of power is what I heard from Master, and hence that decision from Jay to make these two clowns officials. Anyway, make sure to keep a watch on any suspicious individuals you detect. Chapter 80. Glenn came out of the theater and remarked, that was quite a refreshing play, I never thought that dramas could be this exciting, as it gains popularity the theater would start getting full later on. Prague said after hearing Glenn, I liked the philosophical aspect of the play which was focused at the common man and his hardships. Marsh said as he remembered about the launch of new vehicles, why don't we show you something more interesting? Recently we are going to launch new machines which would reduce labor and increase efficiency. Joe thought a bit as he remembered something and blurted out, what was it called? If I remember correctly, it was called a wheelbarrow and a bicycle. From what I heard it was jointly produced by George's shop, Ron's shop, and the main one being Lord's shop headed by Tornwall. Because of the lack of labor, Tornwall had decided to make use of other shops for the production of small parts which necessarily wouldn't need their expertise. These days George was especially happy because of the increase in traffic at North Frontier City. Marsh signaled and said after hearing Joe, anyway let's first head there and then make heads or tails about the situation, I wonder what kind of machines they are that they needed to announce regarding them. Glenn said after hearing, This seems interesting, why don't we just have a look?" As Glenn said this, everyone headed to the workshops of North Frontier Town. After heading the workshops, they saw there were already people gathered at the workshops. When people saw the bicycles, they were quite astonished after they saw someone riding it. What shocked them the most was its speed. Meanwhile, Glenn and Prague watched the wheelbarrow and understood its significance. Glenn thought and said, "This thing would increase the speed of various projects many-fold. Sadly, it is very easy to be imitated, as most of the aristocrats won't even care about the creator." Prague nodded in agreement and said, "Quite true, the usefulness of this vehicle seems very attractive to businessmen who have large amounts of labor as the main activity. It would be quite a useful thing in ports and increase the efficiency of ports. As for the imitations, we shouldn't be worried that much, since I think even with full production, this city would be lacking them as they expanding at a very fast rate. I think they launched this for their own domestic purposes and needs rather than selling it to others." Glenn smiled as he said, "You should be a merchant rather than becoming a teacher, Prague. You could even find the places where its use would be the most. Anyway, it's quite true when you said about the expansion rate of this city." Meanwhile, there was a commotion taking place near the famous restaurant Hope. There was a noble and his entourage who was making a scene in front of Martha at the square. The arrogant noble said in an angry tone, "How can a slave be able to dine and wine such luxurious food with the likes of us nobles? Don't you know these people shouldn't even be entertained over here? What do you think would happen if other nobles find out that I dined with a slave in the same establishment? Doesn't this establishment understand on who should be dined and who shouldn't be dined?" This noble's name was Evan Laguna. He was the third son of the Duke of Eastern Seas, Fjord Laguna. Duke Fjord mainly controlled the eastern lands and the seas of Elias Kingdom. The noble thought as he had already recognized Martha, "Humph, this slave dares run this establishment, I will make sure to ruin the image of this establishment. As for these slaves, I wonder how they ended up here instead of some mines." Martha meanwhile was hearing all of this as she said to the noble, "I am sorry, sir, but these are the orders from our superiors. If you have any problems, then you can notify them at Lord's mansion." Martha recognized this noble. He was the one who was responsible for their debts after Jake offended him. However, as she didn't want to create any more problems for John, she controlled her nervousness and anger as said to him. The noble understood what she meant. This establishment had the direct support of the lord of this town, and he was the one who directed the policies here as well. In short, he was directly confronting the lord over here if he had any problems. After hearing this, one of his knights removed his sword and directed at Martha as he said, "How dare you as a slave dare to talk back to a noble? It seems you need some teaching since you don't know your place." The knight swung his sword towards Martha as he said those previous words. Jay was watching this scene from the sidelines as he hoped this noble restrains himself. He thought, "I guess I need to stop it right now or it will become more ugly. I just hope Jake doesn't come at the wrong time from his mission and make matters worse." From the smirk of this noble, I can guess he pretty much knows about Martha, and that's why he decided to take action against her. And the same is the case for Martha, as she is retraining herself more from her usual self. Jay took out one of his arrows as he shot it down towards the hand of that knight. Watching the attack, the knight stopped in his tracks as he moved to miss the arrow. However, part of the blade still hurt her leg as blood started coming as she fell on the ground. Watching the commotion, Glenn and Co came to the square. Marsh and Joe came in the defense of Martha as they saw the knight swinging his sword without any hesitation towards Martha. Joe roared loudly as he said, "How dare you attack in broad daylight? Don't you know the laws of North Frontier Town?" The noble, Evan Laguna, grinned a bit and said, "HMPF, I guess you will always remain a pleb. I guess you don't know that normal laws won't work on us. Since she dared to dishonor me after replying back earlier, I have the right to judge her as she dared to dishonor me. As for that archer, why don't you come forward?" Jay came forward as he signaled Joe to remain on guard and said to Evan, "Although she is a slave, she is owned by the lord of this town, so I guess it would ruin his reputation if anyone can impudently kill his slave and run off. Would this explanation suffice to appease your anger?" Evan said. "Oh, it seems she is quite important as a slave, as she even has bodyguards to protect her while she is also the manager of this establishment. Is she really a slave?" This was quite a tricky question where Jay had to answer well, or it could even affect John if word goes around where John was only pretending to buy slaves. Jay replied, "Lord appreciates anyone who has talents and hence her position over here. There is nothing wrong in keeping a capable person in the right place." Evan grinned and said this intentionally, "Well, a slave is still a slave, you won't mind if we kill her and pay compensation. This wouldn't cause dishonor to your lord, right?" Jay's eyebrows twitched as he heard this intentional provocation, while everyone was watching this commotion with keen eyes, whether slave, commoner or noble, as the problem was only increasing. Meanwhile, Betrayal was watching all this commotion from sidelines as he smirked and said after watching at a certain direction, "I wonder how they will solve this current situation." One of his men said after watching the scene, "Boss, aren't we going to help them?" Betrayal smiled as he said, "That would be no fun. If we interfere, it would be finished in a few seconds without having any fun. And our only job this time around was to protect those visitors named Glenn and Prague. It will only change if circumstances require our involvement." Betrayal smirked and he continued, "So we must follow our orders very strictly. Do you understand?" All the men laughed as one of them replied, "Ha ha ha, okay, we understand. We will follow the orders very strictly." Betrayal smiled as he pointed at a certain direction for his men and said, "Meanwhile, don't you guys want to watch the fun and see how he responds after his first kill?" The men watched that Jake just arrived at North Frontier City after his mission and was just heading where the commotion was taking place. One of the men said after watching this, "Isn't this bad, boss? This could escalate things very fast. You do realize the identity of that noble? Isn't it better to delay things?" Betrayal said mysteriously, "Well, from what I heard from Master, this place will become an eye of the storm during the next winter anyway. So this place is a hotbed anyway. Master anyway is going to protect this town, so why not spice up things a little bit? And do you really think that kid would stop after watching her mother get hurt? And even if he stops, I am sure he will try to assassinate him as soon as possible after tasting that sense of power after that first blood in his last mission. That's why I didn't even bother about this commotion in the first place after sensing his arrival. Anyway, this would also reveal the mettle of all the people in this town and whether they are worth Master's protection or not." One of the men said after he watched his arrival, "That kid has changed a lot after his first mission. I heard he did a B-rank mission on his first job, and that too quite cleanly." Betrayal meanwhile gave his orders, "Don't chatter, just be on your guards if you see any movements from those knights. Make sure to protect that kid as he is quite important to Master. So protect him first, forget about those visitors for now. No, allocate one of the men to go and watch over them, rest will be here." Jake just arrived after completing his mission at Redwood City. He saw that there was a commotion going on near the restaurant where his mother worked and decided to check what was going on over there. He was quite shocked after watching the scene.